Hey! So, what do you think of that little intro I had? Anyways, today I'll be showing you how to shade skin, quite obviously. Also, head over to my Instagram to see the complete work. Okay, so I'm using Procreate for this, but you can use Ibispaint because the brushes that I'm using are quite basic. So I'm just showing you my layers. So just keep an eye on the skin layer. Everything is clipped down to this one layer that just selects the whole character. Okay, but that doesn't matter. The point is just have your base color. And then I'm getting a big airbrush, okay? It can be any type of airbrush. And then just getting a little more saturated version of my original skin color, but slightly edging it more towards cooler colors. Then I'm just lightly airbrushing around the chin, around the shoulder, every lower half of the character. So then I'm using a slightly harder airbrush, or if you're in Ibispaint, you can just use Dip Pen Soft, I suppose. So then I'm just going around the eyes with the same exact color. Just surrounding little features such as like the eyes, and then also just following the lines of the knuckles. But if you're not doing hands, then yeah, I guess you don't have to do knuckles because you're not doing hands, quite obviously. Yeah. So now I'm getting more of a pinkish color, and please make sure that the pink color is the same. It's like not very intense, like we're not doing very intense colors, okay? So just brushing it where blush should be, right under the eyes, on the cheeks. And now, just a little bit on the nose. She looks like she has a cold, actually. Yeah, so just a little bit on the nose. And then I also like to do it inside the ear. Also on the lower half of any fingers that you have. Well, you can also ultimately just use a reference for this because, you know, use references. That's what I kind of used a reference for this too. So now just underneath the nose where the nostril is and underneath the eyes because, yeah, I think that's where it should go. Just follow my lead. I always try my best not to say just do what I do or just like follow what I do in my tutorials, but it looks like I did it. So just going around on the nose because I really want to bring out certain features such as her lips. Though anime doesn't really have many, like it doesn't really have lips exactly. Okay, it depends on the genre you're doing or the anime type, but just the lower lip. So I'm just adding a little bit of that pinkish color. And now gently onto the knuckles again. So as I said before, shading is just really about layering things. Like you have your slightly lighter tones and then you just go darker and darker. And anytime when I change my color to go darker, I make sure to not only make it more saturated, but also to go more towards the cooler colors whenever I select a color. Also, make sure that everything that you're coloring with on your skin is very saturated. Like make sure that it's kind of saturated and vibrant, or else your character is going to just look muddy and dead. So also, a thing that I want you guys to take into account is a thing called cast shadow. Cast shadow is when something else casts a shadow. Okay, sure, that is how shadows work, but these have special treatment, at least to me it does. So I would just do like the basic shading onto the skin and stuff like that. And then, you know, I'm making the neck a darker color than the head just to show some depth. Like, oh, the head is further than the neck is. I just feel like it really helps bring the character out. And you see here now I'm paying attention to each strand of hair that I have so that I can have more accurate skin shading. So just continuing on with the cast shadow. And keep in mind, you should have an idea of where your light source is coming from. My light source is coming from the upper right corner of the screen. The upper right corner of the screen is pretty much always where I put all my lighting. I don't know why. So before you start shading things, please make sure that you know what light source you're having I think that's a good idea. So on the hands, I'm just doing tendons. I always find it better to just do like the details of the hands and such on the shading layer instead of the line art, because it gives things a much softer look. So you see we also gave her a bit of an upper lip. And now we're also just painting under her nose, just like a little part of under her nose, because I really want to bring some depth to her nose, because I want to start drawing noses. I want to be able to breathe. Yeah. So anyway, I just want to point out, in case no one else noticed, that swag as hell. So yeah, I would be very happy if someone agreed with me that I'm swag. So just continuing on, and then like bigger chunks such as the shoulder that I have, I just make sure just to do one big chunky shadow, just all the way across. And then I make sure to soften it out. So I'm using the smudge brush for this. You could do the exact same thing in Ibispaint, okay? Because I used Ibispaint before. So just using the smudge brush to smudge things into the direction of whatever I'm coloring. Such as when you're blending things, you don't just like blend in any random direction. You blend it either outwards or inwards, and make sure to always follow the shape of your character. Like, if something is circular, then you're going to smudge in a circular pattern, not like just straight, okay? Because we're very much trying to keep the form and make it look like our character is kind of popping out, okay? So I just like to go around the eyes a little more, because I really want the eyes to pop out. So here I'm just doing really light shadows with an airbrush, just on other parts of the skin that I feel like should have a little more depth or be darker. Such as the top of the head, like where the hair is, and also around the hand and the shoulder and such. It's also a good idea to keep an eye on values. Values is basically the balance between like your light and dark. Why does that remind me of Star Wars? But it's basically just light and dark. So a good way to check this, sorry that I didn't show an example here, but a good way to check it is just to like save your drawing or something and then just turn it to black and white, or have a layer above it, put it to blending mode color, and then just have a gray so you could see your character in black and white, and you could judge, hey, are the values good or not? Alright, so but this isn't 100% about values, but when shading there are certain things that you should take into account, such as values, contrast, and also just, alright, this is my style. Well, okay, it's not my style, like I don't freaking own it, but a lot of people do. A lot of people own it. So I like to have a really saturated, warm kind of color. So that's why I use a lot of saturated colors. Also, a good thing to bring things out is highlights, which I'm using here. So I'm just using a highlight, which is just a white, and I'm making sure to go really gently on it. I see some people, they like go super crazy with the highlights, and it makes their skin look so shiny, almost like plastic. So, you know, watch out for that if you want. Unless you like plastic looking skin, then that's okay. So, since it's a really anime thing to just have a thing of white there, I decided to do that because, yeah. Of course, you don't have to do this, but, you know, I do this because I want to do this. Alright, so as I was saying about the saturated part, a lot of people, they just have, like, really gray looking characters, and they kind of look dead and muddy, so, you know, that's not a good thing. You can check out my how to color better, or I'll link it in the description. You can check out that tutorial for better coloring tips, I suppose. And for the lighting, we're also smudging it because I don't want like this really just like shiny light on them. I just want to have highlights of the skin so that it can add depth to the character, because we have the base color, then we have the shadows, then we have the highlights. And the highlights, I feel like they play a really good big role, but I always try to make the highlights really subtle, just to bring things out a don't just add the highlights randomly. Add the highlights where whatever feature of the character's face is popping out more. Such as the nose, it pops out more than anything else. And the lips, they pop out more, and then like the cheeks, they also pop out. But, like, you wouldn't add it on, let's say, I don't know, you wouldn't really add it on the chin, really. Unless your character has a big chin, I suppose. Like a really shiny chin, but in my case, no, because I don't have a big chin. So I'm making a new layer, and I'm just setting it to overlay. And I'm getting just an airbrush. And this is something that I like to do as just like a final touches. I just get it in white on an overlay layer with an airbrush. I just like to go over things that I feel like should be lighter. Like the center of the face and such like that. It's just one of my opinion things. And also, here's a good thing. You should also have different shades onto your skin. Like, oh yeah, sure, you could have like peach colors and stuff. But a good thing to have is blue. It helps to have like blue tones in your skin, or green, I guess. But I like to use blue. So I'm using a new layer, setting it to multiply. Getting a blue color. And still using the airbrush. And then I'm just like lightly tapping it on. It helps to have blue tints in your skin. It just makes things look so much more realistic. So I just usually like to tap that on with an airbrush later. So yeah. Also, really depending on where you are or where your character is, the background color should also be implanted onto the skin. Like if you're in a green place, then your character should have like tints of green in them, because skin is really reflective. Alright, especially if it's like really light, then it's more reflective because it's a light color. But yeah. That should also go for like your entire character, such as the clothes and such, but you know. So I'm just merging everything down. Some of it went onto the eye, so I'm just erasing that. Now here's the thing with the line art. We're alpha locking the line art, okay? Alpha lock it, very important. Then we're just using an airbrush with a bright red color. And we are just going to go over some parts of the line art. But I don't do this randomly. I make sure to do this on parts that would hit the sun. So it's like, oh, the top of the finger would hit the sun, then I make it bright red. Also, my line art is set to multiply, okay? So that's another important thing that I do, is I set my line art to multiply. Alright, so I'd like to just do that around the eyes and such, around the nose, just having a nice bright red. And then I also like to do it onto the tongue and such, because I don't want that to be a black line, because it seems to pop out just a little bit too much. And I don't want that. So just touching up the line art a little bit. And now here's the thing for gentle line art. So I'm unlocking the layer and I duplicated it. And now I am doing Gaussian blur, I think that's the name of it. So now I'm just like lightly doing some Gaussian blur, and it gives this really nice soft line art look, which I really like. So now I'm merging it all together, and that's about the end. So thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much for the fan art. Take care, everyone, and remember, you won't become just an art god in like one tutorial or something. So keep putting it to practice, and most importantly, have fun. See ya!